Okay, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of Insatiable episode 3, season 2, episode 3, Boomerang. Okay, so the bodies keep piling up there in Masonville. Okay, so it opens up with Dixie. She went into the story of how she got back into town. The car broke down. She ended up having to take an Uber. She gets out of the Uber. Of course, that's when we saw her. And then she drives across the street. And then the Wiener Taco truck runs her over. Okay, so now she's in the hospital. And she's actually paralyzed. Now, if you remember in season 1, where her and her mom faked her being paralyzed to get back at Patty, she's now actually paralyzed from the waist down. Okay, so her mom, Vagina comes in, and basically Dixie was like, get out. You know, everything bad has happened in my life. It's because of you, and you forcing me to lie, and all, you know, basically all your shenanigans and your scams and your drama. You're the reason for all of this. Just get out. And so of course she left. She was all, you know, upset and teary-eyed, and she left. Okay, so Brick and Patty, they're in the waiting room at the hospital to get an update on Dixie, and Bob shows up with did he have flowers? I don't think he had flowers. He showed up and he starts going into what Patty needs to do, and so of course Brick and Patty are like, oh, you want to talk about that now? You're talking about her getting her teeth whitened and all that for the upcoming competition. And so they're like, what are you talking about? He was like, you know what? Because at this point, nobody knows that she's severely injured. So he's like, okay, they pulled this stunt before, so you'll forgive me if I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not chopping at the bit to find out what's going on with her. Because basically everybody knows that Vagina and Dixie are a bunch of liars and scammers. So he's like, you need to get your teeth whitened, you need to do this. So he basically goes into what she needs to do. Nonnie and Choi shows up, and Choi starts talking about if his father's going to go to jail for driving the Wiener. If his father could go to jail, so he was asking Bob. Bob was like, yeah, most likely. So of course Choi was like, oh my god. And Brick was like, okay, way to go, Dad. Like, you know, you're freaking him out. And Bob was like, I'm just being honest. So he gets up and he leaves, and Brick goes into his dad. He's like, I'm sorry, my father, he's just basically he's just insensitive. He got a bunch of problems, And Patty was like, well, no, he's not like that. And Brick was like, well, you know, you basically think the sun, the moon, and the stars rise with my father. And maybe he made some comment about her not having a father. It was an insensitive comment. And so they had an exchange of words, and she left. As she was leaving, she obviously decided she was gonna stop at the vending machine because she has now had one of her binging fits. So she realized she doesn't have any change. So she kind of looks around and she sees there's a table with a plate full of donuts. She takes the entire damn plate in an empty room, sits in a hospital bed, and basically stuffs her face, eating all of these donuts. So while she's finishing the last donut, mom rolls her child in who's going through chemotherapy, and the child, you know, she's helping the child get into the bed, and the child was like, well, you know, what happened? You know, they said after my treatment that I could have a donut. Those donuts were for the kids going through the chemo and radiation treatment, and this heifer just sat there and ate the entire plate of donuts. So now she feels like crap because she ate all the donuts. Okay, so she ends up seeing that there's a meeting for people with eating disorders. And so she kind of stands at the door and kind of listens a little bit, and then she turns and she sees Dee. Dee is Nonnie's girlfriend. Okay, so she's like, oh, okay. So they make eye contact, and if you know anything, you know Dee can't stand Patty. So Patty goes in, and Dee ends up having to move her purse so that Patty can sit down. So people start talking, and they start talking about their different types of eating disorders. The people that binge and purge, the people who just binge, and obsessive eating. So there's something that Dee has, which is the same thing that Patty's now realizing that she has. And so they started talking about sponsors. So as they were leaving the meeting, of course, Dee, she's not trying to talk to Patty. But Patty is kind of asking her all these questions about the different types of eating disorders and how there's, you know, what Dee described and what she goes through is similar. And Dee is like, girl, okay, well, you know, I have some place to be. Okay. So she's, you know, she's answering the questions, but obviously she's reluctantly answering the questions because she just doesn't, she can't stand Patty. And so Patty eventually asked her to be her sponsor. And he was like, fuck no. It's just like a reflex action. She was like, well, no, there's a lot of people in the meeting. Why don't you ask one of them? And they talked for a while. She was like, okay, you know what? Temporarily, I'll be your sponsor temporarily. I'm giving you a week to find another sponsor. So basically, anytime that, you know, you have to understand that things are not about the food. Anytime you feel like you want to eat, call me, because we have to determine why your binge eating is physical or whether it's emotional. Okay, so they had the conversation, and Patty gets a text, I guess from Bob, telling her, okay, you know, your appointment is for your teeth whitening, you got to come on one. And so she was like, oh, I have to go. And then Dee was like, thank God. Okay, whatever, girl. Talk to you later. So Coralee, she's coming up to the hospital to see Dixie. And Regina is sitting on one of the benches outside the hospital, and she tells her, first they start talking about the Tampoozle or whatever, the Tampazzle idea, and how Coralee now wants to team up with Regina, and Regina was like, I don't need you anymore. I have my own backers, and she was like, you're also an ex-con, and I could be this is Coralee saying, I could be the face of the business, and initially she was, you know, they weren't going to see eye to eye, and Regina was like, basically no. So she was about to leave, and Coralee stopped, and she went back. She was like, she went and sat next to her. She's like, what are you doing, Regina? Said, she was like, you know, mother to mother, I can't just leave you like this, you know. So she stayed, and Regina cried on her shoulder and got makeup all over her damn white blazer, just a mess. But she stayed to console her, you know, to be a support to her, which was nice of her. But all the shit that she's done, I mean, it's crazy, because if you remember, welcome to that. Okay, so Patty shows up for her teeth whitening, and he was and wondered why she was late, and she said, well, I went to my first support group for eating disorders. And so he was so happy. He was like, oh, okay. So he was so proud of her, and she was like, first he started having second thoughts, like, maybe we shouldn't focus on this, maybe we should focus on your recovery. And while they're talking, he gets a text from Dixie, and he's like, what the hell is this girl texting me for? And Patty is just like, you know, so should I do? He's like, if you do it, you can do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, you know, it's already paid for. But I really think that you should focus on your recovery. So then we see Barnard and Magnolia. So with Magnolia, she's back at home, and she was on her tablet or something. He comes in and he takes a tablet from her and said, the doctor said that you need to give your brain a rest, because, you know, she's had a head injury, the whole thing, and she's dealing with the short-term memory loss. And they're talking, and he was like, she was like, well, maybe I saw something that, you know, was traumatic that's causing the memory loss. So it's giving, kind of hinting to maybe she saw Patty kill Christian. But that's neither there. So they go back and forth, and he says that he's on his way to the police station to get an update on her case, and he wants somebody to stay with her. And she was like, I really don't have any friends. She was like, well, Dad, you know, if you think back, do you remember anybody coming over to hang out? And, you know, I never had any friends. It was either school or pageants, and the only time that I wasn't doing that, I was with Brick. And so they ended up calling Brick to have Brick come over and sit with her while he goes to the police station. So Bob goes to the hospital to see what Dixie's talking about. She wants to sue the Wiener Taco for paralyzing her. And initially he was like, why the hell would I even want to be bothered with that? Initially he said no, and then she was talking about the amount of money that she was going to sue for, and then he was like, maybe. So she now has an attorney. So Dee is Dee's sitting in the car. She's waiting on Nonnie to come out, because now Patty is having one of her, she wants to binge. And so they start talking. She was like, Nonnie, I'm going out with Nonnie. She was like, oh, Patty's like, oh, can I go with you? She was like, no. And first of all, Nonnie doesn't know that I'm in the program. I don't want her to know. And she's coming out, so I have to talk to you later. So she hangs up the phone. So Brick is over at Magnolia's and they start talking, and of course Patty comes up and he was like, is it kind of weird for me to talk about her? And then of course during their conversation, Patty calls, wanted to touch base and apologize for her blowing up at him at the hospital. And he said, oh, I'm just with Magnolia. And of course she got upset and was like, well, what are you doing over there? And he's like, well, Dad doesn't want her to be alone because she's still healing and dealing with the head injury, And she was like, well, maybe I can come over and hang out. He's like, well, no, don't worry about it, because by the time you get here, I'll be gone. So she heads on home. So she pulls into her driveway, and she sees this guy walking around looking in the window. So before he can say anything, she makes the hell out of him. So he's now standing there screaming, she's like, what are you doing outside my house? He was like, I know your mom, one of your mom's friends. She didn't care, so she sprayed him again. Then he gave her the cell phone and gave her the code so she could get in. She saw the photos of her mom and the guy. She was like, oh, I am so sorry. And so she gets in the house and she's helping him cold compress and the kind of flush his eyes and put so the swelling can go down from the mace. And so they start talking, and he asked her about the car. Now, if you remember the last episode, on her birthday, at her birthday party, she had set this guy up to get arrested, and she ended up taking the car and she left town. That was the last time Patty saw her. She took the car and hit the road. She felt like Patty was 18 and now she can go off and do whatever it is she wants to do. And Patty hasn't seen her since. So he reveals that he's her father, Patty's father. And so of course now she's like, oh my God, this is the answer to all my prayers. Because Patty is really childlike and naive, and even though she's a serial killer, she is just very damaged. So she just feels like, oh my God, my father, he's an answer to all my prayers. So now they start talking, and he was like, of course he's landed on thick, like, your mom, they didn't want me around, and I missed your first day of school and never got to teach you how to ride a bike. And so she said, well, I went to so-and-so school, and my first day of school I got sick and threw up on this person, and then I never learned to ride a bike, so they were all caught up. And so the whole time they're talking, his phone is going off, like people texting, and she was like, well, why aren't you answering your phone? He's like, oh, it's not a big deal. And so she's like, maybe we should text my mom and see if she'll, talk, be happy and talk to both of us. And initially he didn't want to. She was like, well, how do I even know that you're my dad? So he's like, he's gonna go pick up a paternity test and he'll be right back. So he leaves the house. He gets a phone call and he basically says that he doesn't have the car, but he's going to get some money from his daughter, and he walks off. So he's a POS, we'll say that. Okay, so Barnard gets to this police station. He's looking for Detective Cruz, who's supposed to be the lead on the case. He's not there, and I forget the cop's name who was initially interviewing them, but he's like, he's not here, and I'm not obligated to tell you anything. I'm on my way out to monitor Patty Bladell. He was like, oh, well, she's still a suspect. He was like, no, like he's just an incomplete, the other cop. And so Bob was going to see if he can get his job back as the DA, so that he'll have more insight on what's going on with the case. So that's his plan anyway. Dee and Nonnie, they are out on their date. They're at the Wiener Taco. Apparently that's the only place in town. And Patty calls her. So you see clips of Patty. She's going in and out of the refrigerator eating peanut butter out the jar. It's like she can't stop herself. So she calls Dee. Nonnie sees Patty's number come up on Dee's call ID. Dee goes outside to take the call, and Nonnie is obviously kind of like, why is Patty calling my girlfriend? So they talk, and she told her that her father, father came back into town, and she was like, "That all that in one day, huh?" And so they talked, and she was like telling her basically, pump your brakes. You're putting too much into this. You don't even know this guy. We still, you know, you really have to take this on and find out what's your trigger, what's going on with you. But Patty, again, she doesn't listen, and she just feels like her father being there is the answer to all her prayers. They hang up. So she's like, okay. Dee's like, damn, okay. So she now goes back into the restaurant, and of course Nonnie's like, why is Patty calling you? And she was like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's nothing really. She was like, well, why is it a secret? So Dee didn't want to tell her, and of course Nonnie was like, okay. She got up and she left. And when she left, Dee called somebody and said, okay, something is happening. We're gonna have to be a change of plan. So what the hell is going on with Dee? Is she undercover something? I guess we'll find out as the season progresses. We don't know. Okay, so Regina, and Coralee are still at the hospital. And Coralee was like, okay, so don't you think you should actually go in and see your daughter and see what's going on with her? And Regina was like, well, no, because she said she didn't want to see me. She says that I'm a bad mom. And Coralee was kind of being sarcastic. Her face was like, oh, like, you are a horrible mom. But, you know, like, did she say that really? Oh, you poor thing. And then she starts saying, you are really lucky. Because Brick is a very a wonderful, compassionate, and of course Coralee doesn't want to hear that, because the reason, if you remember the last season, the reason Regina went to prison was because she was having a sexual relationship with Brick, who was 16, he was underage, so she actually went to jail. She's a registered sex offender. So Coralee was like, oh, okay, girl, stop. So now they're going back and forth now about the Tampoozle and how they could work together, and now they're going back and forth over the name. Coralee wants it to be called Tampazzle. Regina wants to be called Tampoozle. So they're Tampazzle, Pazzle, Poozle. And so of course Barnard walks up and he's looking at them like, what is wrong with y'all? And so Barnard was like, you know, he came to see Dixie. You say, you know, she stayed in my house for some time, so I kind of feel like she, you know, one of my daughters, I already lost one daughter, the other daughter's sick, so I just feel like I'm just not able to keep, you know, I just feel like I can't protect anybody. And dummy Regina was like, you know what I do whenever I feel like that? I do a couple of lines of pure Colombian Coke. It makes everything, and so of course they're looking at her like, she is just a fool. Okay, so she ends up leaving, and Barnard sat before I leave like, what? He's like, what is wrong with that woman? Okay, I don't know. So he tells her about his idea of running for DA again, and somebody's obviously that position already filled. So she was like, you should run for mayor. And so they started talking, and he was like, you know what, you could be the Jackie O to my Kennedy. And he said something about her gag reflex, which was supposed to be a compliment. So they kind of laughed, and she kind of smiled, like, yeah, I know. And it was, given the situation under the table, but it was kind of funny. So so I guess now he's gonna run for mayor. So Armstrong, sorry, I had to play. Armstrong ends up meeting with Mr. Choi's attorney, who was not about the BS. She was all about, like, okay, my client is not responsible for this. You should be the one being sued because you got the permits for that event, and you didn't take any safety precautions. And so he rapidly got Dixie out of the room before Dixie decided to sue him. So what he did was he did some research and something about Mr. Cho's glasses, how he wasn't wearing his glasses, and his new prescription, and so basically he was able to win in favor of Dixie, and now Dixie owns the Wiener Taco restaurant. And so she's, you know, she was happy that she won, but now she was like, okay, so now what? So now she's in her room, and the attorney, Mr. Choi's attorney, who's also in a wheelchair, she went in and she talked to her. She was like, you know, your life is going to be different, but that doesn't mean that it's going to have to be bad. It doesn't mean that your life is going to change. You know, it has to be, your life is going to be whatever you make it. It's going to be an adjustment, but you know, you'll figure it out, and that's pretty much all you can do to keep moving forward. So Patty is back at the house, and she's looking through some old photos, and she finds a restraining order that was filed on behalf of her mother by her grandmother. And she's like, well, what is this about? And so she gets a text from her dad asking to meet her in the park. Asking her to meet him in the park. And so she get there, and he has a bike for her, because remember she said in the beginning that she never learned to ride a bike. So now he's teaching her how to ride this bike. She's crashing. It was just a whole hot mess. This big ass woman on this bike, and this man, it was just crazy. So they're having a moment, and they start talking, and she he admits that he stole the bike. She's like, well, what do you mean you stole the bike? He's like, well, you said you didn't know how to ride a bike, and I got the bike so I could show you, teach you. And he was like, who knows when I'm ever going to see you, something like that. And he's like, well, the reason I need the car is because I owe some people money, and I was going to sell it. And she's like, well, I don't want to lose you over money. And he was like, I don't want any money that you got from your pageant. And she was like, wait a minute. What do you mean? What money? Well, how do you know that I want money from the pageant? He said, I saw it on your mom's Facebook. And she was like, wait a minute. So things start clicking in her mind. Was this all this is about, you getting money? And then he starts talking about, she asked him about the restraining order. And why would why would my grandmother get a restraining order against you? And then he turned around and said, well, because he admitted that he was a POS. He was sleeping with he was the grandmama's boyfriend, and then he started a sexual relationship with her mom. And when she got pregnant, and she was like, oh my God, you're disgusting, you're da-da-da. So she starts going into one of her rages. It was like, it's all your fault. And the whole time she's talking to him, he's like backing up, and she's like, one of those things where she's moving forward and he's backing up, and you're the reason for my eating disorder. You're the reason why she's so messed up. You're the reason why she's an alcoholic. You're the reason why she's always abandoned me, why I always felt like an afterthought. Eventually he backs up so far, he falls down a cliff, and you kind of hear a crack, so you just assume he broke his neck, and now he's dead at the bottom of the hill. So she has another dead body. And she called, first person she called was Bob. But Bob was so happy that he'd won the case for Dixie. He was on, cloud nine, and she didn't want to ruin that for him. So she basically was like, okay, well, I'll talk to you later. So what she did was she took his cell phone, her dad's cell phone, and she deleted the text that he sent to her about meeting him in the park. And then she sent a text basically saying that he couldn't basically stand to live, like basically a suicide note. And she ends up throwing the phone and taking the bike and the stolen bike and going to a meeting. And that's how this episode ends. So this is getting to be a bit much. I mean, there's too many bodies. There's too many bodies floating around. And it's only a matter of time before Magnolia regains her memory. And is she going to be another casualty of Addie's lunacy? Who knows? But yeah, that's how this episode ended. This episode is a lot darker than the first, I'll have to say. It's still entertaining, but it's darker. So yeah, I guess I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.